Okay, let's finish the Valg Society. Hello and welcome to the Battle in Barrow. Yes, it's that time. It's that time to finish B6, the Valg Society. I've been running this year. That's the first half I wanted to run Valg Society. Second half, Isle of Dread. Ooh. But yes, and we're at the end of it now. I extended it by sort of, not dragging it out, it's the wrong word, but like the first game in our session was just almost a one-shot adventure. It involved a cult, but not the Valg Society cult. It was just to get us back into the swing of things after the Christmas break. The second game, which was the Fisherman's Fiend, was setting up a Nerofel's Thief Guild and a lot of player interaction. And at the end of that, there was the festival that's featured in the Valg Society. And we also introduced the noble houses, which play a large part of the adventure. The third part in our series was an actual Thieves Guild adventure. This was again not in the actual B6 itself, but something I thought would be fitting and to extend it. It was a heist, and it was at one of the nobles' houses, Sturchenza, which had one house that's specific to Port Blacksand and nothing to do with the Valg Society. But what happened is, in the last adventure, the Fisherman's Fiend, it was planning for a lot of that game was planning for the heist, and one of the things they did was go to the district where a lot of the noble houses are, and they decided to pick House Diago as their sort of target house for their plans. Their plans was to infiltrate a noble, befriend them, and sort of gain access as an escort to one of the nobles, and that's what happened. They picked Diago. Now, the person they met was Marianne Diago. Now, if you played the Valg Society, you know that in the book it's Lucy, or Lucille, that is the one that gets murdered and kickstarts the whole adventure. But due to this, I decided to change it a little bit, and it would be Marianne that would be the victim, being the players had an interaction with them already. So when we get to the heist, this also sets up, because I wanted to show rather than tell, a suspect for the forthcoming events. That is Lord Octus. He has a disagreement with the victim, and in the module it's just a bit of information, whereas here I can show that interaction. So when she gets murdered, there's a potential suspect already. In this game I also got the chase really wrong, and that worried me because this game that we're about to talk about is pretty much a chase. So part 4 is where the actual module is, the meat and grit of the module, if you like. Beneath the floors, this is where there's murder, the players get involved in it, they're either forced into solving the mystery or asked to. In my case, asked to, because I'd already set up in episode 1 Constable Grindlethorpe, I can never remember his name, and he comes back now to ask the players to assist him in solving the murder beneath the floors. So yes, whilst it looked like I was padding it out, I was actually setting it up little bit by little and giving a chance to the players to expand their own stories, their own worlds as well. So yes, episode 5 was another big part of the adventure, and that was the riot, and again that lays down some more details and more flavour about what's going on in the world. Our episode 6 was another Thieves Guild one. I just wanted to expand it out a bit, and I wanted to introduce something to do with the Diagos, and so it's still tied in with them being related to Argos, the dragon, the warrior, Diago, the Argos kind of thing. Anyway, so it was just lucky that they picked the Diago house in episode 2 all that time back, because it set up all this for me and made it easy for me. So yeah, there was the riot, and then we their guild adventure into the Diago mausoleum. That worked out as well. That was a complete random adventure as well. As had a chart that I rolled on. They rolled on in episode 1 and 2, I think it was. And it was Lord Azure as the guy asked him to do it, so it was one of his emissaries. And it was retrieve a magical item from the cemetery off of the Diago noble house. So that sort of set up really easy, because who had just died? A Diago. So it worked really well considering it was random. Sometimes random just tells a cohesive narrative story. But anyway, that leads us all up to today and the chase. So yes, we start off with our players in the fish market district, back on the hills, the stakeout, trying to find the suspect. The two of them, they now know, one has ginger hair and a wound, and the other one a big black bushy beard. And it's literally minutes into the game before whoosh, an arrow flies past their heads, missing them narrowly. In the distance they look up and they see a hooded man that they recognise as a member of the Valk Society, with a bow and arrow dart round the corner. Yes, the chase has begun. Now what we're going to be doing here in the recap will look pretty cool. There is a massive map for this, and in B6 module you had buildings that you would set up and create the layout, which is all pretty cool, but we've now got terrain for that nowadays. So back then it was a bit of a revelation. Nowadays it's cool, we can use the terrain. The problem is I built the streets, I built the houses. It takes a bit of a while to set up, so this chase is broken down into little mini encounters, if you like, and so each one of those I was setting up, and it took a bit of time. If you watch the full play session when it comes out, you can see that, so I'm going to leave that in there. I may need to think of a better system for this in the future, but ho-hum, it works. So this was encounter 1. They run round the corner, and this is where 5e gets on my nerves a little bit. You can use the dash action up to your constitution modifier, but then a player like an Aerophil has an ability where it sort of negates that. And anyway, if you use the dash action beyond that, you take a point of exhaustion. The Valk Society is way ahead anyway, so he should keep it in the lead for a while. And this adventure can end in many ways. There's no set outcome. If it plays out to fruition, it leads them straight to a secret entrance behind the Drunken Fisherman Inn, where the person they're chasing will slip into a secret door, and they'll just catch a glimpse of it to know there's a secret door there. But there is like this big burly warrior there, kind of in the description, which reminds me from the 3 Indiana Jones films, and there are only 3 Indiana Jones films. He always fights a big burly chap, and played by the same actor in each film as a different role, and that's what that reminds me of in this one. It could end where they kill the guy from the distance before he even reaches the hideout. It could be they capture him and get the information, but if they do kill him before he gets there, he has a note on him that will say meeting tonight 7 PM, Drunken Fisherman. So there's that. So anyway, our players give chase. They run around the corner, and it's an ambush. There's loads more Valk Society there with crossbows, taking pop shots at them before they get there, and that totally threw the players surprised. Mini skirmish. Next encounter, they catch a glimpse of the guy they're chasing dart up an alley, but as he darts up the alley, there is like the beginning of the fish market, and he pulls one of the stalls over, creating a blockage. This will take 2 turns to move, or there's another alley next to it. Now they run the chance of that alley leading to a dead end or leading off to a totally different way, so they have a little choice here. They pick to just run up the alley, and luckily it leads to a similar location. There are more Valk Society here they have to deal with as well, have a bit of a combat here. And the next encounter, it's a crowd of people because it's leading into the market, and what has been building up here in this encounter as well is a secondary riot is about to explode into the streets. They can hear like it all beginning to happen now around them. So there's all people here, so movement is hampered. They see their quarry in the distance and do manage to actually catch up with him here, because his movement is slowed as well. And obviously players with their abilities can move quite fast and what have you. They manage to catch up with him, they grapple him, they pull him, and they drag him back to the quieter part of the streets they've just come from to interrogate him. He, being a member of the Valve Society, put his mask off, and it is indeed the redhead suspect, where they can notice he is wounded, or he's wounded now, sort of healing, beginning to heal. He took a nasty wound when he murdered Marianne, but he doesn't speak a word. They quickly search him and do find a bit of paper that says the aforementioned meeting at the Drunken Fisherman, but they now need to decide what they're going to do with him. Now, they aren't goody heroes in that sense. They are in the underworld, so they don't straight up murder him, but during the last session, if you remember, they got a Nosferatu working for them now, and she will need feeding. So they decide, I think this is a bit dextery, to feed her bad guys. She's a Nosferatu, so in Beckley that is a vampire that retains all the stats and abilities they had in life, but they now have to drink blood, and they can walk a bit in some, but not, and that gets better as they get more powerful. So this vampire they got has the noble stats of a noble, but has to drink blood. She has been following them their journey, but in the sewers below, so she's been watching them. And so the reason they went back to this place is because they very cunningly noticed there is a sewer on the terrain. So what they do is they kind of, it's like pop the suspect down into the sewer to their vampire comrade. What happens then? But now we've got time to kill until 7, so I just make sure if they want to buy anything, do anything, you can do that, and we just skip ahead to 7 o'clock to the drunken fisherman. They've already got a plan. Walker has a ring that can make him invisible. Perfect. They have a Valve Society outfit that they give to Gelfin with. She doesn't have the hood on at the time. And Nerophil has a ring where he can disguise himself to make him look like anything he wants. So he makes himself look like the guy they were just chasing. They go into the Drunken Fisherman, and for all intents and purposes it is a normal harbour based pub. In fact, there are drunken fishermen singing sea shanties as they go in there. But the barman is someone they've met before. I don't know if you remember in the right episode, Walker accidentally knocked a fisherman off a sort of roof perch as he was climbing up to the roof because he rolled bad. He's the barman, he's the landlord. It's a good job Walker is invisible. As they go in, they see the second suspect is there. The guy with the big black bushy beard. There's 2 curtains at the far wall. He ducks behind one as they enter. Not because he recognises them, remember they're invisible and in disguise, but just because he's a member of the Valve Society and it's time for the meeting. Now, is the landlord part of the Valve Society? Is this pub part of the Valve Society? The answer, I know the answer because I made it up myself, is no, but he got into a bit of trouble and then had to hire the back room out, and before he knows it, he's got a nefarious society working out of his pub, and he's was an honest man, is an honest man, he's just drunk, has a wife to think of, so yeah, he's just got in over his head. The players don't know this at this time though. So it's time to try and get into the building. An Aerophil should be easy. He looks like a known member of the society in this place. Galfenwith, bit different. She may have the uniform on, the robes on, but Walker, he's going to be easy. Now, again, the players jammily do this. I was going to have it be a bit of an encounter due to Galfenwith, but to get into the back, because they nip behind the back curtain, Gelfenwith and Anerothal. I think it's going to be easy, and it's just a small corridor. There's a back door to the pub there, and it's double doors that open top and bottom. The top's open, they can see the streets, and there are two members of the Valk Society playing dice here. You look at Anerothal and recognise him, and they look at Gelfenwith and a bit confused, but with Anerothal they look at him, give him a nod, and then look at Gelfenwith, and they're confused, and I'm playing this out, and they go, and they sort of say to him, you shouldn't be wearing your robes here, you should get changed into the robing room, and they point to the wall opposite in the corridor, and it's just a wall. So that gave them the idea that there is indeed a secret door there. But I was going to play this out a bit where they don't recognise her and what have you, but Walker is invisible, he's still in the pub, and he is just now messing with the fisherman landlord that he accidentally pushed off the roof. He's moving his beer invisible on the bar, confusing the landlord, scaring him a little bit because it's somewhat supernatural, and he then pushes it off and it smashes on the floor, causing a massive distraction in the bar, which distracts the two guys playing dice as well, in which case Anerothal by this time has found the secret door, and it's into a small robing room, just big enough for one person. And again, he stops to think and thinks, well, if there's a secret door here, searches the opposite wall and finds a second secret door that leads stairs going down into a darkened passage. So all three players go there before the two dice guards can recoup and work out what's going on. So Walker inadvertently made it easier for the players. They descend into the darkness, and below there is a passage going off to the right and one going off further down. The one going down further into the dark and gloom, they can see a bit of a glow light in the distance, and it smells of incense. Now this gives them the idea that's probably where a ceremony is. They can hear chanting as well, or talking, chanting, but it's echoing around the room. It sounds like it's coming stronger from the passage to their right, but the incense and lights in front of them. So they decide to go that way. Again, this is a very non-linear module for this part. You don't have to encounter almost hardly any of this. They could have skipped the top bit upstairs if they'd have found the secret entrance. They could have, but I like that about this module. It's very non-linear. They go down a passage. In front of them they soon come to a door that they ignore because they light an incense coming down from a passage as it bends round, and they get further and it comes to a dead end, and they're rather confused. The light is brighter here and the smell of incense is really strong. They turn round to go back, and there is a giant monster plant that I actually knocked up a quick model, so it's just a little plant with tea light in that I put in, and this is what I used for it. It's called a siren flower, and it is a monster that was new to this module. That was created for this module, and it has the effects of a siren. There's the sort of the smell of the incense and the light lulls you into sort of a charmed like state, which Walker gets charmed, and then the plant will grab you, wrap you, and then slowly constrict you and break your bones and suffocate you. Bit of combat, it's nothing too difficult. They deal with it, but they sort of ask themselves, why is this thing here? Why is this monster here? It's quite an exotic plant. Anerothal has shipping records that he stole last year before we even got to this sort of stage of the game. Walker has sort of knowledge, and Gelfenwith has sort of knowledge of exotic plants, and they realise that this plant comes from the Phanagioth archipelago, which is right down south and around that area. Now, looking at the shipping records, the only ships that go down there are Hadrak ships, due to them importing a fine wine. I don't know if you remember the previous adventures. I'm trying to all tie it back in and get there. And so far, they don't know who the Veiled Society is, but by this little clue, this little, when they do an investigation into this little event, they're now beginning to get, you know, a clue of who it is. And yeah, it's right, just that wine, and now this, who the Veiled Society actually are. Yep. And just all the events that have led up to this, they think back to all their interactions with the Hagraks and what is going on, and they've got it, they've worked out. They go back to that door, by the way, and they listen, they can hear someone in there. It's locked. They pick the lock and go in expecting trouble, and they find a chained up elf, a Kalari elf, and they set him free. He's really weak. They heal him, which I thought was nice. I think Nerfil has, as a bard, he has some healing magic, minor healing magic, heals him. So then this elf says his name, says he's part of the King's Guard. It's now king rather than duke. We've had the coronation, and thanks them, lets them know that he was kidnapped by the Hadraks, yada yada. He'll go back and let the king know about what they're doing here. So he goes off. Unfortunately, he went off before the next part. He lets them know about a secret door just nearby. They have a search for it and open it up. Yes, because in here is this elf's guard gear, but they take it anyway after what happens next, and they'll give it back to him later on. It's not the best. There's nothing worth keeping. The only reason they're giving it back is because there's nothing worth keeping. But yes, in here on the floor there is an old man, a dead body. There is a younger man, and then there is a middle-aged man who are having an argument. Now, if you remember the intros that I had been doing for this series on the Waffles, I referred to the father, the older brother, the younger brother, and the uncle. Well, the father is the dead body here. This is Anton Hadrak, the head of the Veiled Society, who has been murdered by his brother, who is the uncle figure, Cartha Hadrak. And there is Zwei's Hadrak here, the older son. And as he enters, Zwei, the older son, turns around and screams, because he thinks they're Veiled Society members, don't forget, because two of them are in Veiled Society gear. He sort of points at his uncle and says, "He's murdered my father, our leader. Get him." The uncle sees the intruders and immediately lunges at them. They quickly put him down because they're not really high stats. These guys are not the big bad of the world. They are just humans after all, so it's a short, sharp battle with the amount of power they have behind them. At this, Zweiss says he'll give them money and offer monetary reward, but they put him down too. They gather enough evidence. They search a room and gather some evidence of the misdeeds of the Hadrak family. Probably need that later on. I'll probably come back to this once this adventure's over at a later date. So after this, I do want to move on, which we do in this game, by the way. Anyway, back to the adventure. They decide that the only place they've got to search is that corridor that they sort of ignored first of all. So they go back to there, and it winds down, but it winds to comes to a door, an archway door. So there's no door to open as such. And they go in, but they're up above like a sort of a semicircle platform looking down into a room below, which is a chamber full of Veiled Society members. There's like 20 normal ones and a leader. Now this leader, who will turn out to be Antonio Hadrak, the younger son, is saying, and it's talking to who is being held by two guards, the black bushy beard guy. Now, if you remember those intro bits, it was Antonio that hired these two guys to kill Marianne, which displeased the father. So now he is making it look like they acted against orders, and so he is putting this guy to death. And that is what happens. He kills the black bushy beard guy, and at this stage the players step in and I think one hit annihilates some. This causes confusion and the morale failure of some who run out the secret doors, which would be the secret doors that if they would have followed the chase through, where they would have come into. So they could have probably, you know, done this in a totally different way. It might have been harder doing it this way because it would have been almost a full-on direct confrontation. And then the rest are, you know, rapidly put down. Antonio is a cleric and has a sleep spell, which this is why I don't like 5e too much. I like it and don't like it. I have a love-hate relationship with it. So players are well overpowered and monsters are not. So his sleep spell only affects things up to 33 hit points. Of course, most players are beyond that, almost level 1, aren't they? So cast it, and Nerophel does nothing, doesn't it? Rubbish. 5e wizards sort this out. Having to rewrite your game most of the time. Anyway, it's fun. Combat it ends, and the Valk Society has been, at least in Black Sand, put down. But like a Hydra, it could rise its head, could come back, grow another head, and come back in the future. Now, whilst I have been waffling on for a long time, this part of the session was only halfway through our play session. Ideally, I would have liked to have had this at the end of a previous type of adventure, just to have this bit be the end of a session, but it wasn't to happen. So what are we going to do for the rest of the session? Well, we're going to prep for what's to come. They get back to the Fisherman's Fiend, and Tibbs says there has been a messenger from Irendi, from the Mage Marine in Irendi. Their ship is ready. Yay! So next day they rest up, and the next day they go and retrieve their underwater boat by diving into the harbour. It's put underwater, travel to Irendi. This is about 2.5 days. So they have to, at this stage, I'm sort of making it into it. So what's going to happen now is between going nautical with the ships and playing Isle of Dread it's a lot of exploration. Beforehand, I've not really worried about it too much because we've either been in the city or locations nearby. The adventure location is nearby to where we're staying at the start now. But this is different. This is exploration. So having to think about things like taking enough rations and water for the journey for enough people. So in this case, 2.5 days, they're going to need 2.5 days worth of food and water for 3 people plus their animals. So they stock up there. They go and see Jasper for a while. I think Anirafel gets his misty boots that he's wanted, misty set boots from Jasper, and Jasper himself is wearing a weird outfit. He's got his wizard sort of bit at the top. Underneath he's wearing these brightly coloured short trousers. These are Bermuda shorts. He's going on vacation. We'll see him again soon. Yeah, so they set out to Irendi, and soon they reach there. Now I'm changing what Irendi is, sort of downplaying the vacation holiday spot side of it. There are 2 resorts that are still there, and when the players go there, they'll notice that there are different sort of richer, nobler families from around the world sort of staying there, so it's a multicultural place. But Irendi city itself, I'm making more like Port Royal from Pirates of the Caribbean, very deliberately. So it's got a strong navy there, so that will be the British Navy in Pirates of the Caribbean. And indeed, when they reach there, they will see their guards are all in red coats and black hats, like the British Navy portrayed in Pirates of the Caribbean, with big bayonetta type weapons as well. When they reach Irendi, it is a walled city. There is a one way into the harbour, and that is through some gates. Later on they'll be let know that these gates have spikes just under the surface, so if anyone tries to get in or out without them wanting to, Irendi wanting to, this can be deployed to rip a hole into the hull of their ship. But yeah, they dock, and when they dock they meet a guy with a notebook and what have you. He is the character in Pirates of the Caribbean that Jack Sparrow first meets on that dock in the first introduction, so I play it like that. He says there is a mooring fee of a gold, so Anirafol pays him the gold, but he's got ability to sort of pocket it back, so it looks like they've been paid he's been paid his gold, but really they don't, they've still got it. They then say they're here to get by, pick up a ship they bought from Mage Marina, to which the guy says, as that's all part of Port Royale and they're all Irendi and their commerce, he then says, oh, you should have said Morin is free. In that case, reaches into his pocket and hands him the gold coin back, but they didn't pay him in the first place. So they go and get their ship. And here's what we did for the rest of this session. I am using the rules based upon something called Captains and Cannons from the DM's Guild. So the rules we're using for ship combat and ship sort of encounters, I'm using those. So what we do for the rest of the session is effectively go through learning the rules, or introducing the rules and how it all works. And that's what we do, and that's where we leave this session. Next session, what I've got planned is effectively a free, completely random in session. I'm not planning anything, it's all going to be rolled random, and because what I want for the next session is to carry on learning the rules of the ship encounters. It's going to be very important for the rest of the year's game, so we need to make sure we've got that down pat. So one of the encounters I'm hoping will come up will be a ship-to-ship encounter, so we can really get to grips with the rules. But yeah, that's this week's done. Really enjoyed this session, really enjoyed B6 the Bound Society. It is a fantastic module with a lot of space, as you can see during these recaps, to expand. Don't know if you noticed now, you may have noticed on the channel, because that's what I've put on just recently, is a lot of the full sessions are now being made on the main channel. They were Patreon only, but I'm going to put them on the main channel here for you guys to enjoy, so you can listen to the waffle or listen to the full session, or both, preferably both. Anyway, that's it. Until the next waffle, the next video, stay safe, take care, bye bye.